I was going to start with introductions, but Michael, thank you for doing that for me. I just want to note that Madison is my development assistant, and she's also our communication specialist at Shires Housing. So we welcomed her last year, and Becky actually predates me at the organization and has been doing her important work for many years with Shires Housing and SASH. And we are actually, SASH is under the umbrella of Shires Housing, and we are considered a designated regional housing organization for that program. So let me just move ahead one. So I just figured I'd start with the mission and vision so you just get a sense of who we are. And we've just gone through the strategic planning process for the first time in many years. So this is, relatively fresh. The mission of Shires is to create and manage quality long-term housing that's perpetually affordable for low and moderate income residents of Southwestern Vermont and the surrounding region. And you'll see next to that our Starkos Firehouse. That was an historic rehab that we completed about 2 years ago. The vision, community served will be stronger, safer, healthier, more vibrant, more diverse, because there are more opportunities for quality housing choices that are affordable to people of all income levels, and residents have the support they need. The building to the left is on Route 67 in Shaftesbury or North Bennington. And that there are two that we rehabbed during that same project. Oh, sorry, got ahead of myself a little bit. So our 3 lines of business include property management, development, and the SASH program. I'm going to talk about the first 2, and then I'm going to hand it over to Becky to talk about the SASH program. So we're all about creating housing opportunities and quality housing that people can afford at all income levels. So we currently manage, actually, as of September, 397 apartments throughout Bennington County. And we've built 8 for-sale condos in Manchester, 5 of which were affordable, which is a tough thing to do in Manchester. And in the past 5 years, we've completed the redevelopment of the Bennington Historic LP, which was 26 units of existing housing in Bennington. That was part of our portfolio that needed a refresher and needed some energy upgrades. Battenkill North, which was a 22-unit project, but that was scattered in 3 towns. So that yellow building is in Arlington on Route 313, and that was paired with buildings in Bennington and in North Bennington. Applegate Apartments, which was an energy rehab. Largely it was to address the envelopes of the buildings, and we installed a biomass boiler and boiler plant that runs the entire site now. So it was energy related and has really made a tremendous impact in terms of costs and our oil and fossil fuel use at that site. It's been really quite amazing. My first go around with the wood chip technology, and it's made a big difference for the operating. It's making an impact on the environment, and certainly more energy efficient for the residents and comfortable and healthier environment for them. And then Woodland Station Housing involves 2 buildings on Depot Street in Bennington, so 7 units, and they're both historic. And then a 20-unit in Manchester that we combined, and it sounds kind of odd because of the geography, but those were the units that we felt needed to be rehabbed the most. They were crying the loudest to us, so we paired them into a new LP, a limited partnership, and we're currently rehabbing all of those and doing some site work that is a little more extensive than we originally thought it would be. We found a couple of issues in Manchester with our sewer system, but we're addressing it. So now's the opportunity to fix that. And 300 Pleasant Street is a redevelopment that's ongoing, and it will be the home for the Bennington County Coalition for the Homeless, for their families in transition, as well as office space for them. They are currently in Thatcher House across the street, and it's really in need of a lot of repair, and they needed something more dignified for the residents, and they felt, separate bedrooms were necessary. In their current space, everyone lives in an efficiency, and you could have up to 8 family members living in one room with a bathroom. So this will provide more of an apartment-like setting for them, and we will manage the property. We'll retain ownership of it. We'll be the stewards of the property, but they will perform, the programming, and they will do their business as they always do, but just in a nicer environment now, more dignified environment, and affordable. We're hoping that their operations will benefit from this with the energy upgrades that we're doing to the building. And we think it will really make a big difference for their bottom line and keeping them sustainable for the long term. We've also done some new construction, Monument View, as Michael mentioned. We completed that last year. East Branch Farms condominiums, we completed the second phase in September. And then Lake Paran Village, we just completed in September as well. And that's 22 rental units in Shaftesbury, just over the Shaftesbury line, close to North Bennington, within walking distance. And that's been probably my labor of love project for about 5 years, for as long as I've been here, and we finally got it built. So this is really exciting, and it's fully leased up as of December 1st, which was amazing. We had a really strong wait list for this one, and there was clearly a need in that area. So we're really, really happy about that. These are just some examples of our properties. Top left is the East Branch Farms condos. We try to focus as much as we can on the energy efficiency aspect. And for these, we went with the heat pump hot water heaters. They're Energy Star certified. And we also went with the mini split heating and cooling in the last 4 units. So these are really comfortable units. 5 of the 8 are affordable to families at 120% of median income and under, and 3 are market rate. It completed a project that started years ago, and it was always intended to be 20 units so that the condo association could support itself. And the previous builder went out of business back in 2008, 2009, the big housing crisis hit. So we were asked to step in by one of our primary funders, VHFA, and were asked if we would complete this. So we did. We took it on, even though homeownership wasn't really what we did at the time. We decided to take it on. And my background is more in homeownership, so I was really pleased to do this. And we really had a wonderful product, and the homes sold, and they came onto the market this summer. So really perfect timing. They were gone before they were finished. So it worked out really well for us. And now the condo association has stabilized. They have sufficient dues coming in to maintain the property. And we left them in a much better place, I think. So we're really, really pleased with this one. Below that, you'll see Lake Paran Village in the bottom left. And that's the one that we completed this September as well, and is now fully leased up. We did take some big steps there to address energy efficiency. And we decided that we'd like to do this one without fossil fuels, even though that was originally the plan, was to have propane heat, just your basic vanilla kind of project. And we said, no, we can do better than that. So we decided that we would do an all electric option, which to me initially sounded a little insane, pardon me, but I said, is this, 1975? So we thought we could do this by making the envelopes super airtight, by, high R value insulation. And we discovered a product called Aero Barrier. And Aero Barrier is meant to go beyond your typical air sealing, which we do pretty well now. We usually have a goal of 2 air changes per hour at 50 Pascal, and we always do better than that. It's usually about 1.6. So on these, we said, no, we're going to do this even better. So we tried this Aero Barrier, and it's an aerosolized caulk that you spray into the air, and it finds all of the holes, any holes that we couldn't cover, with regular air sealing, and it fills them. And the technology is amazing. So, a little bit of a cost hike, but we felt it was worth it. And we expect to save about $16,000 a year in our operations with this product, just in that. And primarily with the domestic hot water, we found is where the savings would come, because it's year round. So we were really pleased to do that. We had, high R value insulation. We decided to go with frost protected shallow foundations on this one. And it means only 1 pour per building. And you save a lot on concrete, and you save costs as well. So it saved the budget about $60,000. And we also added solar panels And, we just felt that would close the loop, and we did well with our budget, and we had enough left in contingency to be able to do that. So we're really thrilled with that. And we think, it's going to save in the long term. We think that cost will pay back in about 7 years, which is great. So we're hoping, it's going to result in low maintenance, savings for the tenants, savings for us, comfortable environment. This one also has access to Lake Perrin. So we have our own trail for the residents. So they have access to recreation. It's close to the park. It's half a mile from public transportation. Even though it's in a more rural area, it's still in an area that's butted up against North Bennington Village. So, they have access to the library. There's school choice in that area. So the kids could opt to go to the North Bennington school or to the Shaftesbury school. So we really, it's really been a great project. It took a team, it took 3 towns, it took, support from Shaftesbury, and Naylor and Green was the builder for this one, and Jeff Goldstone was the architect. And we're really pleased with, the outcome on this one. And to the right is one of our buildings from the Bennington Historic Rehab project. And, we did energy improvements there as well. And it's different when you're doing rehab. You have to work with what's there, but you try to leave it in a much better place than where you found it, and performing much more efficiently. Just going to move on. So this is just, sort of backing up what our mission is, empowering families and supporting economic growth. I mean, for example, just with Lake Paran Village, we had an estimated 130 jobs on site. And that's not taking into account the vendors who we purchase supplies from, like RK Miles or Home Depot, or the local asphalt plant. It's really a huge economic driver. With our projects over the past 5 years, we've brought investment of approximately $38 million into the community, into Bennington and surrounding. And that doesn't even take into account our daily activities with maintaining our properties, with the maintenance, and with the local vendors that we support. So it's really been a big economic supporter of jobs locally, building sustainability for families. And we feel like housing is a platform for so many things: for health, for financial stability, for education, for mental well-being. And that, there are so many families that are overburdened with their rent payments in Bennington County. In Vermont, it's about 52%. And if they're cost burden, it means they're paying more than 30% of their income on their housing costs. In Bennington County, it's closer to 60%. And the vacancy rate is at 0.4%. So it's a really difficult housing market for families who are struggling, or for people who would like to relocate here. It's very difficult to find quality housing that they can afford, no matter what their income level might be. All right, so I think next we'll move on to the SASH program that covers, it touches on, our property management arm and our development arm. So I'm going to turn it over to Becky to talk a little bit about our third line of business, which is SASH, or Support and Services at Home.
Hi, everyone. As Stephanie and Madison know, I will talk to anyone that will listen about SASH. I absolutely love what we do. 50% of my time is spent on the SASH program, and 50% of my time is spent on community services. With that, we serve not only Bennington County, but also Deerfield Valley. Under the Shires umbrella, we have 5 coordinators and 5 wellness nurses. The coordinators are 40 hours, the wellness nurses are 10. And then each coordinator either has a panel or a panel and a half, which means they can sign up to either 50 or 100 participants that are on Medicare. The only prerequisite to be on the SASH program is you must be on Medicare. There is no cost to anyone. We are funded through Medicare, Medicaid, and now we're starting to be funded as well through some of the other insurance companies, Blue Cross Blue Shield. I know they're talking to. SASH has been in Vermont for approximately 12 years now. We are now branching out, so we are in 2 other states as well, but a little different model. SASH has been in Bennington, I believe, since the inception. They had 2 panels in Bennington, which they oversaw approximately 200 people. After the 3rd year, it was a pilot program. After the 3rd year of the pilot, they brought on more panels. So now in the state, there are 54 panels that cover SASH. So across Vermont, SASH serves approximately 5,400 seniors or persons with disabilities. We are put into, we are managed under a DRO, which is the Designated Regional Housing Organization. Initially, SASH was put in to help people stay in their apartments for as long as possible. Cathedral Square up in Burlington was realizing that as their residents either aged out or became disabled, they were losing tenants, and people do not age well in nursing homes or assisted living as well as they do in their own home. Especially nowadays with COVID hitting, imagine if your loved one was in a group setting, how much more stressful that would be for you and for them. So in Shires, we have 1 senior living building, which is Cora B. Whitney, houses approximately 22 residents. We also oversee the SASH program at Bennington Housing's Walloomsac Apartments, Brookside Apartments, THM's Homestead Mews and Homestead Green. We have a Manchester SASH panel, which oversees the Shires Housing apartments up there as well as community. And then we have 2 in Deerfield Valley, which oversee Wyndham Windsor Housing Trust's 26 apartment building in Westover. And then we see approximately 150 people in the Deerfield Valley. We bring nursing into, wellness nursing into these participants in their homes. The wellness nurses also do a monthly wellness event. It could be around diabetes, it could be around blood pressure, it could be around any wellness event. We also sit on many meetings in the Bennington County. We are on the Shires RX Alliance. We are Bennington Blueprint, the Care Coordination Team, the Bennington Community Collaborative, the Community Care Team. The Community Care Team is actually a very important one, where once a month, several agencies and the hospital sit and brainstorm around some tough patients that they may have, and they may need housing, they may need insurance, they may need food. With that brings me to our food. We have always been very conscious of food insecurity. And when COVID really hit our area, Stephanie and I knew that there was going to be a huge need for food. I guess we weren't quite aware how huge. We have 6 food drops between Bennington County and Deerfield Valley now. Also, when the pandemic hit, we opened up a temporary emergency food shelf in Dover for March through July. We have teamed up with the Vermont Everyone Eats program, both in Deerfield Valley and in Bennington County. And if you're not familiar with that, that is using CARES money to help the restaurants, the struggling restaurants during the pandemic. And in turn, they need to provide a $10 meal that we can now give out to people in the community. The first half of the Vermont Everyone Eats program in Bennington was done by a voucher program, and that has been extended for one more week. The second part is we will have area restaurants prepare a large quantity of meals, and we will distribute them out to the community. Along with the SASH, one thing we really focus on is social isolation. Social isolation is huge, and that's where we come in with events. We now offer yoga online. We offer gentle Tai Chi online. We've done water Tai Chi, the first in Vermont. We have brought in the farm share program where the state actually funds us to anyone 65 or older can join the farm share program. And every week for 10 weeks, an organic farm will be paid to give us farm shares to distribute out to our people. We've also been part of the Vermonters Feeding Vermonters program through the Vermont Food Bank. So for 4 weeks in Applegate, we set up a shop for free farmers market and let the residents come shop for free. That is about one of the only food events that we closed and hold just for the Shires residents. Other than that, we open up our food programs to almost anyone. We've also been the recipient of the Mellon Grant, Community Foundation Mellon Grant, as well as a couple other community grants to bring food into the area and focus on how to show people how to continue to use their food. With the Mellon Grant, Stephanie and I had a meeting and have decided we purchased a commercial refrigerator, a commercial freezer, a sealer, vacuum sealer. We've purchased canning jars, and for the past 3 years, we've been holding cooking classes on site. Obviously, with the pandemic hitting, it's been a little bit of a challenge, but we've been able to offer 4 cooking programs online, and 2 of those programs are showing folks how to can some of the food they have. So when the food bank comes on the monthly drop, they can now process the food healthy and use it for a longer period of time. I don't know how I'm doing on time because I did not set my timer. I apologize. We also offer online bingo, online family feud. The wellness talks are now moved to online. The online cooking classes. We had come back into the buildings a few months ago, but now with the COVID really hitting the area stronger, we have pulled back. So we are only seeing people on a one-on-one with proper PPE if it is absolutely necessary. One strong thing that SASH did when the pandemic hit was the coordinators have started calling their participants every single week to see if there was any need for food, for groceries, for help with their bills, but mainly just a voice on the other end of the line. Without even asking, our wellness nurses started to do the same. So most of our participants were receiving 2 calls a week until they said they were comfortable enough with us going longer. So some people still receive a call a week. Others, we might check on them every other week. We are making sure they have all their food, their medications. We also have been participating in telehealth visits, and now the SASH program through Cathedral Square actually has several iPads, or I should say tablets, for our coordinators to have on hand, so that when people need a telehealth visit, we can go into their homes and actually help them with that telehealth visit. I've actually done 3 myself with community people. One thing for Shires in Bennington, any Shires resident, regardless of whether they're on Medicare or not, Stephanie has allowed me to help them. So I go in and give them almost the same model as SASH, but as our residents. And then in Deerfield Valley, because Shires has no housing in Deerfield Valley at all, I've actually petitioned to the town, and they now help fund us. And we actually go in and see people in town that do not qualify for the SASH program, or many of our SASH programs have a wait list because 100 is our limit. So I will actually help the coordinators oversee any SASH person that has not been brought onto the panel but is on a wait list. Along with this, we actually have a use and disclosure, so we can work directly with their primary care or their specialist, so that if there's any needs, we can actually be on the front line to help with that. Many of the doctors will email us or call us and ask us to do monthly blood pressure checks on certain people and report back to them. By having the use and disclosure, we can now fax or verbally talk with the doctors at any time. I could keep going on, but if you have questions.
I just have one question, which is Stephanie. When the Monument View Apartments went in, I remember feeling that there was some kind of outsized opposition to that project. And I'm just curious, is that just the nature of these sorts of projects, or do you think that as Shires continues to have successful projects like Monument View, like the one in North Bennington, that there becomes less pockets of opposition or concern in communities, or is that just kind of standard in these?
Well, you put that very nicely. Yes, it was very challenging to get that one built. We did not come up against the same opposition with Lake Paran Village. I think it's about information, being open and communicating with the community, giving them the opportunity to have some input, being forthright about what you intend to do at the site. There's a lot of misinformation about affordable housing, and that it will bring down property values, or it will have a negative impact, or the residents won't, will be, convicted criminals or whatever. But it's so not the case, and studies have found, in fact, it to be absolutely opposite, and that affordable housing really boosts the community, and it brings a lot of investment to the community. And typically our buildings are the nicest on the block, so not to toot our own horn, but we do bring some improvement to the neighborhood, and we hope that will spread with some of the private landlords and property owners. So I think, yes, there was a lot of opposition with that one, and it was tough to hear what some people said. It really was. It was shocking in some cases, and I was brand new when I started. I think my first day was an Act 250 hearing, and I was shocked by it, really, that people would say such things in public, honestly, out loud. But we got through it. It was a fight, and when we approached the Lake Perrin project, we decided, we're just going to have a little bit different approach to this. We're going to involve everybody in this. We're going to talk to them. We're going to let them know what we're doing. We're going to listen to what they have to say. In fact, we were set to build on the east side of the property, and with the input of the town and the neighbors and concerns over, lights coming into their houses and high traffic on McCarthy Acres, we decided that we would shift the site, and we actually built on the other side of the site. it was a little tougher. It was not as flat, you know, there's a lot more earth moving going on, but it made sense. And we listened, you know, we tried to include that in our decisions. And I think it worked out well. We really feel welcomed there. And a lot of the community has reached out to us, the school, the library, Perrin Recreation, Fund for North Bennington, Sage City Syndicate, who we purchased the land from, have really been supportive and have jumped in to welcome the neighbors. And it's been a very different experience. So yeah, we're hoping it gets better and better with each project.
Well, and I hope that people see some of that with Monument View. You know, our condo association, you know, the last time I was at a meeting with them, they said, oh, geez, we don't even know there's anybody there. It's so quiet up there. So
that's good. That's great. Yeah, I'm glad to hear that.
Is it difficult?
I'm sorry?
Is it difficult in Manchester, or is it not? Do you not have any of the same issues there?
We were building for sale housing, so I think, you know, that's well received there. There's definitely need for homes for sale that are affordable, and their definition of affordable is definitely different than Bennington's, but we were able to do it there. We also have 36 rental units there, which are not as well received, but I think it's getting better. I mean, with Jonas Haupt, he's been getting us in front of the select board over the past few years. We've been talking to them about projects. We're rehabbing our project right now up there, and I think it will improve. I think there was some attitude or stigma about affordable housing, but I think it's improving, and I think they recognize the need for it, as most of their workforce travels in from New York or, you know, other places to work because they can't afford to live in Manchester. So they know there's a need, and we've been approached more and more about opportunities there. So I think that's a really good sign.
That's a good question. I'm already unmuted. So the first thing I want to say is kudos on Lake Paran Village. We live in Shaftesbury District 2, and we pass it every time we go to my parents' house. And with us having the rec center projects going on kind of simultaneously, I was always looking to see what kind of work was happening at your site versus our site. We were at very different points in construction, but I was like comparing through the spring what was going on.
Yeah, likewise.
Yeah, and we're working with Goldstone Architects too, and they're amazing, and it just looks great. We love that bench, that kind of built-in bench that's circular. It's beautiful. So thanks for doing such a great job. The other thing I will add as a Shaftesbury District 2 resident is school choice is not just the village school or Shaftesbury, it's anywhere. So those folks can send their kids to independent schools as well. It might be worth mentioning to them. The questions I have are about the transitional housing across from Thatcher House in Bennington, which is great. I'm so happy to hear that you have more efficient housing and accommodations for those folks coming up. We know that it's been a struggle in the past. You get folks into a housing shelter, and when there's a real lack of affordable housing and you know, rentals anyway, just in sheer number, no matter whether they're affordable or not, it can be really tricky to get those folks to transition out if they have nowhere else to go. So people end up staying in housing shelters much longer than intended. And I wondered, you know, do you anticipate, or are there any things in place that would help transition folks from that transitional housing into your apartments or other community apartments, so that you don't have the same family staying there, you know, for years at a time because there's nowhere else to go? And then my second question is about the market rate apartments. Am I correct that those still have an income limit?
Okay, so I'll talk to the first point. So for working with the Coalition for the Homeless, we're part of the continuum of care in Bennington. So we partner with all of the local agencies, UCS, Brock, BCCH, Sunrise, and as a community, we try to work together to make referrals through the continuum of care. Right now, we have some construction underway at the Applegate Apartments, And one big problem and big barrier is a lack of voucher assistance or rental assistance for these folks coming out to at least give them a jump start. So we were able to take 15 units with the CRF funds, which are fleeting. And so we figured we should definitely take advantage of that to rehab 15 units at Applegate, and then also added 15 project-based vouchers to those units. These are specifically for homeless families who are transitioning. So they'll come out of motels or out of the shelters with a voucher in place with a brand new rehab department. And also, though, more importantly, with supportive services from groups like Sunrise, who have housing advocates, and we have an MOU with them. We work with them. We think it's really important for the success, the long-term sustainability of their housing. And they stick with them for 24 months, which is amazing. So we think that's, it's not a guarantee, but it helps. And it's definitely a support system for the families. We also work with Brock and others who will provide this. We try to encourage people to take online renters classes as well now, which, some of them have never had an apartment of their own, or they haven't had good success living on their own. So we think that's just another positive step we can take. And we have our property managers and Becky to help us support the residents. So that's, we hope that we can help with that. But yeah, it continues to be an issue. There's not enough housing for them. There's not enough resources, but we're trying to make it better, definitely. What was the second part of that? I'm sorry.
Maybe for Madison, the market rate apartments, when you say you reserve a couple of those in your projects, is there still an income limit on those?
Yeah, so Stephanie can also probably speak to that more in depth, but there's different levels. So depending on the funding that we receive for each unit is the funding level that restricts the income. So we have some through recent funds through the state that help a higher income bracket than what we usually can serve. That's up to 120% of area median income. So just up to a little over the average in the area. But we also do have some that are just market rate, no income restrictions. So yeah, it's specific to the unit. We don't have as many of those, but it's a good option for folks that, apply and are over the other income limits.
I guess I have a question, and full disclosure, I do graphic arts and marketing work with Shires Housing, as Stephanie mentioned. But it's always struck me that Shires Housing is one of those organizations that don't get the credit they deserve. We see in the headlines all the time about the Putnam Project. And as Stephanie commented, in the last 5 years alone, they've already invested more than the entire phase one of the Putnam Project in just the last 5 years, 38 million. That's an incredible amount of investment into our community. And what is it being used for? It's being targeted towards workforce housing primarily. I mean, that's what those numbers represent when you talk about those income levels. Those are working folks, working Vermonters. And as Bill Colvin reported to the town in his BCRC study a few years ago, that remains the #1 concern from large employers in our area is the lack of affordable quality housing. And I have to comment, the quality is the operative word here. I've had the opportunity to go into these units and look at them, taking pictures for marketing purposes. They're amazing. They're built better than the house I built with my own hands. They're absolutely wonderful. And the pride of the people that live there is palpable. I had the opportunity of coming across a new resident at Monument View that Michael was talking about earlier. And I asked her, she had just moved in, and I asked her if she could share some thoughts on how she felt about her new apartment. And she was just gushing about how happy she was to live in this brand new neighborhood that was just exuding the kind of quality. And so it speaks to how housing is so important for how people feel about themselves and the community as a whole. So it's not really a question, I apologize, but I just wanted to give that shout out because Shires Housing is always there diligently working in the background, investing millions of dollars every year. And again, they don't get the kind of front page coverage that something like a Putnam Block does.
Thank you, Jonah.
Yeah, Jane?
Yeah, I've worked in affordable housing since I was in graduate school. I was paid to study all of the public housing in Boston and write a report. So I was in and out of them. I'm not doing much anymore, but I worked for Habitat for Humanity for free for a long time. There are two things I would say that you haven't mentioned. You do a really good job, and I really enjoy. I was really pleased that you got the Julius Norton House, because I thought, okay, they know what they're doing. They're not going to wreck it, which is the one across from on the corner of Pleasant and School Street. A very historic house. There's two things. One, which you managed to do with North Bennington, was you engaged the community from the beginning. My experience with public housing is that when it's built for other, it does not work. It is done cheaply and disparagingly. But when it's done for us, for our workforce, it is done with quality and care. And that secondly, just as the Eden Way Road does, although it connects from South Street to Silver, you can't look through. So it does not become a shortcut. It wiggles. That slows down traffic. It makes only the people who know can go through, because they know it does go through. But if you're looking, you can't see it. And the same way with the North Bennington project, moving it around so that it is part of the community, creates a place that belongs. So I want to thank you for doing that, and reinforce that you're on, as from my experience, you are on the right track.
Thank you.
I also want to give a shout out to Becky Arbella and what's happening with SASH. It's a powerful combination where you take the support and services at home and combine it with housing. It's a wonderful partnership. And as you heard from her discussion, there's no one more knowledgeable and no one that's more of a go-getter than Becky. So we're lucky to have her in that role.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
So I
Thank
have
you.
a question that, Jane, you were talking about the property that I am kind of referring to. And I wondered if there are any other historic renovation properties that you're considering. Not to mention any of them, but I'm just wondering if that's something that, I love how you do those projects. I know they cost more, but we have so many great historical properties that I would, I think everybody wants to see them stay here. I'm just wondering if that's something that Shires is considering doing.
Oh, absolutely. We would definitely consider doing more of that. As you said, it is definitely more expensive, but there are other sources that become available when you decide to do this. You have to be very careful. Like the Starco's Firehouse, we had to get that right. The community loves that little firehouse. And, it's kind of nerve-wracking. Are we going to do the right thing by this building? But I think we did it well. And the Bradford Firehouse as well. And, it's something that we want to continue to do. A large portion of our portfolio is scattered site historic, which is challenging to run and to maintain and to rehab, but we love it. And it's Vermont, and we think we'd love to continue to do that. We want to do more rehabs. We're doing a rehab right now of existing. We do a combination of, new construction and rehab. Both are getting really expensive, especially with COVID, of course, and the supply chain issues. Lumber went up 25% when we started our most recent project. So it's definitely challenging, but yes, we would love to continue to do work like that.
All right. Does anybody have any last questions or comments? Well, great. Well, thank you for coming by.
Thank you so much for having us.